Today I want to respond to the ministerial press conference, or should I say unusual ministerial press conference, where there were a number of ministers talking about the different ministries. I want to first start with what Minister Inia Seruratu said with respect to common sense and the fact that politicians should keep away. First of all, let me tell him, he himself is a politician. And they were missing for 48 hours when people in the evacuation centers were needing help. If it was not for a particular NGO and community groups, many of those people would have been seriously affected. So instead of going out there and talking about why politicians like him should only deal with this issue, it is our job as opposition politicians to raise this issue on behalf of the people, and the people were calling us. So it's not about common sense, it's about government's lack of planning. It's about government's lack of understanding and preparedness for the particular disaster. I mean, everybody in this country knows, when you have weather patterns affecting the West, they should by now have a database to tell them where and which areas would have obvious flooding and which areas would have communities obviously affected. It's not too hard to plan for this. So let me say to Minister Seruratu, stop talking about politicians. Just do your job, which I think the government miserably failed to do. The other minister that I want to respond to is, of course, the Minister for Economy. And it is rather shameful or unusual for the Minister for Economy to talk about historical expected growth in 2022. Of course, no amount of spin from the Minister for Economy will take away the fact that our economic management, our policies in the last 7 years have been somewhat a disaster. In fact, he failed to mention that the economy was contracting even before the COVID-19 pandemic hit us. So after the pandemic, after 15.2% contraction in 2020, which could be more than the official figures, and 4.4% contraction in 2021, it is obvious that we would expect some recovery in 2021, and the recovery that we made in 2021 as opposed to 2020. I mean, he forgot. I mean, he should have humbled himself and said very clearly, if I were him, I would have said, look, we are expecting to make recovery in 2022, but in 2021, in 2020, we had a lot of support from our donors, from our relatives, our friends outside of Fiji. For example, he failed to mention that in 2020, we received $652 million in personal remittances to this country. In 2021, according to the figures reported, in the first 11 months up to November, we received almost $752 million in remittances. So instead of thanking our donors, our partners, our people, who are living in overseas for sending these remittances, if you total the remittances for 2020 and 2021, it's about $1.4 billion. So obviously, the growth that we expect in 2022, and we all want our economy to recover as soon as possible, we must tell the truth. that the growth in 2022 expected will be mostly from pent-up demand, and if we keep our projections for the increase in tourism numbers to Fiji, then of course, we expect to make a significant recovery in 2022. But for the Minister for Economy to brag about the fact that suddenly, through some magic wand by his ministry or by his government, we're going to have an unprecedented or historical growth of more than 11% in 2022 without pointing out the fact the ingredients for that growth, not only the recovery we made in 2021, but also the recovery we are going to make in 2022 will be dependent on the continuation of the remittances we receive, the provision for loans within the 2021-2022 budget, and the budget support that we've already received. Additionally, we sold EFL. We would have raked in another 200 million there last year, plus loan, for example, from the Japanese government. The disaster response loan provision that was there, that has been given to Fiji. So, if you put all that together, in a crisis, that's expected. But for the Minister for Economy, as he has done in the past, to take credit for budget support as confidence in government's economic policy, that's being very, very economical with the truth. The fact of the matter is, or the reality of the matter is, that our economic management before the COVID pandemic was bad. It remains bad, and government has not been able to communicate very clearly what are their plans. We hear about the tourism industry, and I know Minister Koya, provided those details, but he was talking about the protocols and the expected numbers. But we haven't seen some real recovery plan laid out in consultation with the people as to what we're going to do in 2022. The COVID crisis itself, the handling of COVID crisis itself by this government has been a disaster. If it was not for our donors, our partners, who not only provided, COVID response, funding, they provided personnel, plus, all the effort that businesses have made, to keep the economy going. They should use press conferences like this to actually thank the people, the businesses, the individuals who drive the economy, and not brag about the fact that suddenly we're going to have such historical growth, never seen in Fiji. That's a bit too much. So what we expect from this government is a bit of honesty about the economic situation, honesty about what is happening within the economy at the moment. And as the Minister for Economy said, that we need confidence. You can build confidence. You can only build confidence with truth, with transparency, with accountability, and in a very transparent manner, laying out the policies and plans. That will inspire confidence in our investors, in our people, in terms of spending, in terms of investment, and that's what government needs to come out and explain to the people. So, two things. One, this is a government which keeps talking about us in the opposition politicizing the issue. Ray, you are a politician too. All you do is spin things to make yourself look good. So stop talking about politicians. It is the job of the opposition to hold the government to account. Understand that, Minister Seruratu. And don't accuse politicians. Our job is to raise the issues on behalf of the people. And you and I know that when people do raise issues, things get done, things get resolved. And so, the important point about managing a crisis is being transparent, accountable, open, and it's a time to bring people together. It's a time to work with community groups, NGOs. And this government, has failed to do that.